Welcome to completing your 2024-2025 FAFSA form. This video is to help you walk through how to apply for financial aid using the FAFSA. Today, we're going to talk about how to start your application, and we're also going to cover what information is required for the other parts of the application, personal circumstances and demographic sections. We'll also walk through the student financial section. We'll show you how to select colleges to have this information sent to, and we'll cover reviewing, signing, and submitting your application. And we even have resources to help you after you're done with your application. So first, let's get started with your form. Your first step is to create an FSA ID. This is simply an account for students to be able to access not just their application, but anything from federal student aid. It takes 1 to 3 days for your account to be verified and you be able to access your application. So you want to do this as soon as possible. You're going to need your own phone number and email address, and please don't use the email address you received from your high school, as you're going to lose access to that after you graduate. And everybody who contributes to an application is going to have to create an FSA ID. To get started, you're going to go to FAFSA.gov. What you'll do then is select Start a New Form for the 24-25 application. That's the year that you're applying to go to college. So I know it sounds a little futuristic, but really it's next year. When you select Start a New Form, it's going to take you to the login page for your FSA ID. This is where if you don't have an FSA ID, you can click on Create an Account. And if you've already created an FSA ID, it's really easy for you to get more help with accessing your account if you've lost information. Once you enter in your information, it's going to ask you to start the form as either a student or a parent. So we're going to have you go ahead and start as a student. And then you're going to see some onboarding videos. These videos cover information about what the form is, how to invite your contributors to the form, so who's going to have to provide information for your form to be complete. It's going to talk about what to expect and what's going to happen after submitting your form. These are short videos. There's 4 total that will really cover a lot of the questions that you already have. Once you watch your videos, it's time to move on to starting your application. It's going to ask you information about your identity, and a lot of this is imported right from your FSA ID. So you just want to verify that this is correct. If you need to change your name, birthday, social security number, email address, or your phone number, you can do that right from your FSA ID. For your mailing address, you can actually change that right on the application. So make sure that those are accurate. It's going to ask you what your state of legal residence is. So where do you live? And for Washingtonians, it takes 1 year to be a resident of Washington State. So you'll list when you either came to Washington, or if you've been here your whole life, you just put your birth month and year. What that does is really to assess you for eligibility for Washington State aid and federal aid at the same time. The next step is for you to provide consent and approval. What this means is we, in the new application, are walking students through to understand what consent is. Consent is providing permission for federal student aid to receive information from the IRS to be able to see if you have taxes on file for yourself. This is a really easy process. You want to read through the information, and once you click approve, you'll be able to move on to the next section. If you don't provide consent for this process, you're not eligible for federal aid. Once you've provided consent, it's going to ask you questions about personal circumstances and information about your demographics. For the personal circumstances, I will say they're going to ask some private questions. And so they're not trying to be intrusive, but they're trying to figure out is who needs to provide information on your application and a little bit more about you. One of the things they're trying to figure out is if you're dependent or independent. Now, I know for like life as a human, you are independent, but for financial aid purposes, until the age of 24, you are considered dependent unless you have special or unusual circumstances. And so if you're dependent, you'll have to provide your parent information, like you'll provide your parents' information, and they'll have to fill out a portion of the application as well. If you're considered independent, then what'll end up happening is you'll just provide your own information and be able to submit your application. First, it's going to ask you your marital status. So that's as of today, are you married? If you are in a relationship but not married, that is awesome, but you're still considered single for financial aid purposes. So married means that you have gone through a legal marriage. Then it's going to ask what your career plans are. When you start school, what's going to be your grade level? And if you have your first bachelor's degree. And bachelor's degree is the 4-year degree that you receive at colleges and universities. This is where it's going to ask some of these more intrusive questions. I encourage you, under student personal circumstances, read through this slowly to see if any of these apply to you. If none of them apply to you, you can click none of these apply, but make sure you read it thoroughly to ensure that you're being accurately assessed for dependency. It's also going to ask if you're experiencing other circumstances that might impact your dependency status as well. It's going to ask if you were either unaccompanied and either homeless or self-supporting and at risk for being homeless. And it's going to ask if that's on July 1st, 2023 or after. If you answered yes, it's just going to ask who's made that determination. Do you have McKinney-Vento determination? There's a lot of different places that can assess you. If you haven't been assessed at your school and this is your current circumstance, I encourage you to reach out to your counselor to get assessed so that you can receive supports to help you. It's also going to ask if you have other circumstances that would prevent you from allowing a parent to provide information. So your safety is first and foremost when you're applying for aid. So if you having to provide parent information puts you in danger because maybe you've left home because your household's abusive, maybe you're unable to contact your parents and don't have any way to connect with them. Um, uh, there's a lot of different circumstances that could be yours. If you see them on here, or even if you think that potentially you're in a circumstance that would keep you from being able to contact your parents, you can select yes. And when you select yes, you'll be considered what's called provisionally independent. You'll be able to complete your portion of the application. And then a financial aid officer is going to talk to you about your circumstances to see if you can be considered independent. Again, we want to make sure your safety is first and foremost in this process. If you are a dependent student, then this is the slide that you're going to see. It's going to tell you that you're going to have to provide parent information. It's also going to ask if you just want to apply for loans, which we don't want you to just do loans. We want to see what money you can get from grants and all the other types of aid. So you want to make sure that when you apply for the dependency status, when you're applying here, it says apply for a direct unsub loan only. You want to click no. You want to get all the aid, not just an unsub loan. For independent students, it's going to say, hey, you're independent, and we're going to ask questions about you and your demographics, and then we're going to have you report your financials, but you don't have to provide any parent information. So for dependent students, if you're considered dependent, it's also going to say now, tell us a little bit more about your parents. They're trying to figure out if both of your parents are going to have to provide information, if one will, and they just want to know a little bit more about you. On the next screen, they'll ask you to invite your parent or parents depending on how you answered your questions. You're going to need your parent's first name, last name, birthday, and if applicable, their social security number. If they don't have a social security number, no worries. You're just going to check the box that says my parent doesn't have an SSN. You want to make sure that if your parent does have a social security number, that you're entering the information on the screen as listed on their card or as listed in their FSA ID. If you're having problems connecting your parent to your account, make sure the information you're entering matches their FSA ID so that they can be matched to your account. You'll also add an email address in for them as well. This is how you'll invite your parents. And then it's going to ask you demographic questions. So once you invite your parents, they're going to get an email that says, hey, your student needs some help on their application. You need to do your portion so that they can get financial aid. For demographics, you're only going to be able to see what you enter in here. So your parents will not see this and the colleges will not see this. It's going to ask about gender identity. It's also going to ask about if you're transgender. Again, I want to make sure that students know this process. They're going to ask very private questions. You can always select that you prefer not to answer. Again, your parents won't see this information, neither will the colleges. I also know that this can be challenging because they're asking for legal names in this application. And I just want to acknowledge that that means there's potential dead naming. And I am so sorry if that is the case. It is a process that they are working on to make more equitable. But unfortunately, they're matching to federal information. If you have a name change, you can also update your application as soon as you have your new Social Security card. Any questions that you feel uncomfortable about answering, you can always say prefer not to answer. They're using this merely for research purposes. It's going to ask you some more demographic questions. And I just want you to be aware of what you're going to be asked. Then it's going to ask if you're a citizen, an eligible non-citizen, and that means that you have either a specific visa status, like refugee status, or you're from a freely associated state like Marshall Islands. And then it'll also ask if you're not a U.S. citizen or not an eligible non-citizen. If that is the case, if you're not a U.S. citizen, but you're a Washingtonian, no worries. You're going to go complete the FAFSA. And that's our Washington State application for financial aid. It does not matter for citizenship status for the WAFSA because it's only Washington State aid. But for this application, because it's federal aid, they want to make sure that students are eligible for those funds. It's going to ask about your parent education status. And if you're not sure, it's okay. Just put, I don't know. It'll also ask if you lost a parent in the line of duty, and this is really to connect you to additional funds that are available to you if this is your circumstance. Now it's going to ask about your high school completion status at the beginning of 24-25. So if you're going to be graduated by then, because that's next year, you're going to either select your high school diploma, or if you're homeschooled, or even if you're getting your GED. No matter how you meet the requirement, they just want to know on here. For student high school information, you're going to list, you're going to go through the states, pick Washington State, put your city in, and it'll pop up with the schools in that city. You just click on that, and then you can verify that that's the school you graduated from. You'll confirm it finally when you see it on the next screen. And then it's going to start asking you about your financials. This is just basically information about your assets and if you filed taxes. This is going to be information from 2022. So they're going to ask if you filed 2022 taxes, and if you didn't, as your own self, not like if your parents filed, but did you file as an individual taxes in 2022? If you didn't, you're going to select no, and it's just going to ask you a couple questions about your financials, which includes if you've received income reported to the IRS through scholarships and grants, which is very rare. And then if you have any foreign earned income, so did you earn any money overseas? It's also going to ask for you as an individual human, do you have a current total of cash savings and checking? So how much do you have? If it's nothing, put zero, no worries. You can put any amount that's accurate for you to report. It's also going to ask if you yourself, not your family, but you yourself have a small business or investment farm. And if you do, it's going to ask you to calculate the valuation of it. So it's going to be the value of the business or farm minus any debts owed against it. If you don't have any business or farm students, don't worry, you probably will one day, but for now it's okay. It's also going to ask if you have investments in real estate. This is where you're going to put things in there like if you have a home in your name that you don't live in, or if you have other investments. Do you got crypto we don't know about, things like that? They want to have this in here. This is for them to assess how much you might be eligible for aid. They want to get an accurate picture of your ability to pay. Next, you're going to select your colleges. For selecting your colleges, you'll put any school you're interested in. So even if you're like, I'm not sure I'm going to go there, you can put 20 schools on this application. So put as many as are applicable to you. So you'll be able to go through, enter the state of the college that you want to go to. Then you're going to put the school name in and it'll list the schools. If you're going to a campus that has branch campuses, so let's say you're going to University of Washington, Tacoma, it's not going to list the University of Washington, Tacoma on the page. It'll say University of Washington, and that's where you're going to want to send your forms to. So if you're going to a campus that has branch campuses, typically the main campus is where your forms go to. You'll select your schools, and you can, again, select up to 20. And then it'll give you a list of all the schools that you selected. If you didn't select 20, then it says basically you can add more. And if you submit this application and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to add another school, no worries. You can add more schools later on after it's processed. So your next step is to review, sign, and submit your application. You're almost done. You're going to review all the answers that you listed. So all of these sections open up and it has all of your answers. I encourage you to review it to make sure it's accurate. It's all the information you've entered in today, but it's in a different format, so it's easier to see potential errors. And it's easy just to click on the hyperlink and go right to that page and then come right back to the signing page. It's also going to show you, if you're a dependent student, who you've sent invitations to contribute information. So basically, this means that if you have people listed here, they've been invited to contribute information to complete your application. Your application will not be completed until they provide that information. And if your parents are like, I don't know how to do this, there's a video for them as well on how to provide information as a contributor. And then you're going to sign your form. So you're just basically saying the information I provided is accurate, and I'm signing this form so that I can be assessed for financial aid. Now, it's not complete, again, until the parent information is provided, but you can submit your portion, and then it's just on your parents to be able to complete their portion. So it'll look like this. Once you submit your application, your portion will be provided, and then your parents will be notified, hey, we need information for you for this application to be complete. You're going to receive an email that tells you, hey, your application portion as a student is done and your parents have not provided their information yet. As soon as they provide their information, you're going to get an email that says, congratulations, your application's been submitted. And so once it's submitted, it takes 3 days to process, and then you'll be notified that it's processed. If you're an independent student, you're automatically going to receive the congratulations note that says, congratulations, your application has been submitted and it's processing. It'll take 1 to 3 days to process. And then this is what your confirmation looks like. So you'll have a confirmation that you receive on the screen and anytime you log into your application, as well as an email. And you can track and manage your form. Once your form's processed, you're going to get a FAFSA submission summary. And all this is basically a summary of your answers. It'll have the school information, and it'll tell you what you could be eligible for from federal student aid. This does not include also Washington state aid. So if you're staying in the state of Washington, then when you get your financial aid offer from your college, you'll see that on there as well for what you're eligible for. It'll also tell you if you have any errors in your application that you need to correct. Corrections should start April 15th. So if you've already submitted an application and you need to correct it, starting April 15th, you should be able to access correction features to be able to update your application. If it's after April 15th, then you're able to go in after your application's been processed. So after 3 days and it's been processed, you can go in and update it to fix anything. After your form's submitted, you're going to get that email that's the confirmation that you've completed your section. Again, if you're a dependent student, it's going to say, we're not processing your application until your parents provide information. If you're independent, you're going to get the summary as well as your student summary for submission, and you can make your corrections after 1 to 3 days. And I just want to let you all know that financial aid offers, or what you hear is called like award letters, they're going to be delayed this year. And so information got to the colleges much later than it normally does. And you may not see award letters or financial aid offers until May, June, even into the early summer. Don't worry, we have resources for you. So the 12th Year Campaign has our Padlet. We're part of the Washington Student Achievement Council. We provide resources to support you as you take your next steps to education after high school. We will hold financial aid offer, an event to help you navigate your financial aid offer. And so all of those events will be right on this Padlet. We're really excited for all your opportunities. I know it's been a really challenging time this year, but we're so grateful that you're persisting through your application. In Washington State, we have some of the most equitable funding in the nation, and it's entitlement based, so it's your money. You just have to apply for it. So we're so glad that you're applying for funds for education after high school. If you get stuck or need help, please use your resources and come to one of our events.